Mizmor LeDavid, Anoi Roi Lo Exar, Bino Desha Yarbitzene, Ame Menuchot Yanchilene, Nafshi Shovev Yanchene, Bimagle Tzedek Laman Shemo, Gam Ki Elech Begetz Amavet, Lo Ra Ki Atai Imadi, Shiftecha Min Shaftecha Hamayinachamune, Torach Lafana Shelchan Neget Torah, Deshanta Besheven Roshi, Kosi Revaya, Akto Vechesed Yudefuni Koyime Haya, Vishafti Veda Anoi, Lo Orech Yamim. A song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Andrew will now share some words about his father.
All right. Hello. A lot of you are already friends with me on Facebook, and I have shared much of this there, so I just thought I would share it here for everyone, and I added a little of extra memories and thoughts. So thank you for joining me and my family today, both in person and virtually. My father passed away on December 25th, which means that he had the pleasure of watching the Browns lose just one more time. He would not have wanted it any other way. My dad is the reason that I am left-handed. When I was little, he would smack my hand if I tried picking things up with my right. His hopes were to make me a lefty pitcher. Boy, was he disappointed. He was the coach for my Little League baseball team. Every year, he would bench me and have me hit last for the first inning of the first game, just to prove a point that he does not give special privilege to his son. Well, after being benched for the remaining 8 innings, I began to think that it might just be me. Although his hopes for me to become a Major League Baseball pitcher were never met, my dad was extremely proud of me every step of the way. Among his many coaching positions, the most memorable was as the coach for my Cleveland Jewish Basketball League. Of course, my friends and I were just having fun, but my dad had other plans. He told me that I would not get a ride home unless I made at least one free throw during each game. You better believe that I made at least one, although I knew that he was, for the most part, joking. When selecting a career, he was always 100% supportive of me. He knew that I had aspirations for medicine from a young age. When selecting an undergraduate school, there was really never a doubt that I would become a fourth-generation Buckeye. When I was applying to colleges, he told me that I could apply to any college I wanted to, even Michigan, but he refused to help pay for an application there. Luckily, I was also disgusted at the idea of applying to Michigan, so we were on the same page. My dad loved Ohio State football, and he was very proud of me when I joined the Ohio State marching band. Throughout my 4 years in band, he went to almost every single home game, and he could not have been happier. For all other games, you could often see him lying on his couch wearing his lucky number 2 jersey. I remember for one game, he was wearing a different jersey, and the Buckeyes were down at halftime. He actually changed into his number 2 jersey, and that alone gave the Buckeyes the strength to pull out a win. My dad had an infectious personality. He always filled other people and the world with joy and happiness. They say that a person dies 2 times. The first time is their physical passing, but the second time is the last time that he is thought of by others. Without a doubt, my father will be thought of for a very long time. We have a family motto. In Hebrew, it says, Ani ve'ata nishane ta'olam. You and I will change the world. Dad definitely changed the world for the better. I hope that one day I too will be able to touch as many lives as he did. Goodbye, Dad. I love you very much, and I'm so glad to call you my father. You will be missed, and I know you are smiling down on all of us. Thank you.
Gabby will now share some words about her father.
Hi, everyone. So in law school, I do nothing but write, and I have tried to write this and rewrite this so many times, and every time I can't seem to put into words how incredible of a person that my dad truly was. Throughout the rest of the day, you'll hear so many people tell so many stories about my dad's countless qualities, and I can guarantee you that we could go on for days and weeks and months and talk about how great of a person that my dad was. So I'll keep this brief. My dad was my everything. He was my #1 fan. He came to every dance recital, musical, Michigan performance that he could, even during the dreadful tax season. He was my role model. I followed his footsteps from Ohio State to Cleveland Marshall, and hopefully I will continue to follow in his footsteps and be as successful as he was. And may the only difference between us be that I actually passed the bar. He was a superhero. He was so strong and fought up until the very end. The amount of strength, courage, and determination that someone needs to go through what he went through is astronomical. So you don't need me to tell you what kind of a person my dad was. He showed his character in everything that he did, and even having just met him once, you knew how special of a person he was. He was a family man first and foremost. His love and support ran deep through everything that he did. He gave 100% to his family, his friends, his clients, and every single person that he came into contact with. Because that's the kind of person that my dad was. My dad was a hero. My dad was my best friend. Like I said, I could go on for days and tell you how incredible of a person he truly was. But although he may be gone, like Andrew said, his memory will continue to live on for many, many, many more years because of the impact that he had on so many lives. He really was the best, and he truly will be missed.
John unfortunately couldn't be here in person today, but Aggie will read his remarks.
How does one begin to thank his older brother for all the things that he was taught? From sports to music to literature to business. Shmuel Yechezkel ben Chaim Zev V'Paya Golda was a major influence in my life. He taught me how to hit a baseball, swing a golf club, shoot baskets, listen to Zeppelin, The Who, U2, Genesis, Bruce, and of course Rush. Gave me my appreciation for Tolkien, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and the Hardy Boys. We could speak sentences to each other with just facial expressions, tell whole stories with just a couple of words. There's nobody else like that. My freshman year in college was a little volatile. I had roommate issues several months into the fall quarter, so much so that Steve had to come get me and my things, and I slept on his couch for the remainder of the quarter. We repeated it again in the winter quarter, as it seems that I had difficulty adjusting to living with other people. I'm sure it was them and not me. I think Steve and I will agree that we are both happy that he outgrew that issue, and he didn't ever have to go get picked up by Steve after 1994. Each time, Steve didn't lecture me, just picked me and my stuff up and brought me to his house. One of my favorite memories is the summer that my young family lived in Cleveland while I was in PT school. Steve and I got to play on the same softball team at Beechwood Rec. We hadn't played together on a team since his senior year of high school. Steve and Debbie's home mirrored my parents' home. Both of our parents were the eldest of their siblings, so when Steve and I were growing up, our aunts and uncles were often visitors in our home for weeks, months at a time. When our grandparents no longer were able to host family events, the events were moved to my parents' home. When my parents no longer were able to host, Passover Sederim and holiday meals were moved to Steve and Debbie's. But it was a seamless transition, right, Debbie? And just felt natural. Steve was one of my main sources of information in order to open up and run First Choice Physical Therapy. From the inception to the closure, he was always there for me. When Steve and Debbie were getting married, I was in Israel prior to the wedding. He asked me to purchase kippot for the wedding party. In fact, I'm wearing one of those right now. On it is the phrase, Ani ve'ata neshana et ha'olam. You and I will change the world. How does one know if they have changed the world? I know that Steve truly did. Look at the outpouring of love from all the people over the last couple of days. Classmates from 40 years ago, teachers. There are a lot of people out there that have lost money playing cards with Steve. And yet, they all want to honor him by participating in this funeral. Go Team Donk. Look at his wonderful children. Andrew helps people every day as an emergency med physician's assistant. And Gabby is shining as she follows in Steve's footsteps, learning to be a lawyer. He is so proud of the young people you have become. Continue on your career paths, and even though his body won't be at any upcoming special occasions, his spirit will be. There is a Gemara, Masachet Tanit Hey Amud Bet, about a man walking in a desert for a couple of days when he comes upon a tree. He sits in the shade, eats from the fruit, and rests on the trunk. Afterwards, he asks the tree, should I bless you with the ability to give shade? No, you already have full leaves. Should I bless you with a strong trunk? No, you already have that as well. Should I bless you with tasty fruit? No, you already have that. So the blessing I give you is that the seeds of your fruit should become just like you. Andy and Gabby, see the examples that your parents have set and continue their ways. Deborah, I have no idea how you put up with all of us Hartsteins for 30 plus years. It could not have been easy. But you are part of us and we are to you. Nothing will change. We will continue to invade your home and make ourselves comfortable. Pops, it's been a roller coaster few years. I treasure the years that I was able to spend with you and Mom when I commuted back and forth from Columbus. My biggest regret of not traveling this week is not being able to be at your side physically and emotionally to help you. I know you understand, but the pain is still real. My dearest Stevie, I am grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the 5 weeks we had together this summer, and yet it was too short. We never got to play the championship game of Stratomatic baseball. Thank you for all those memories. I am grateful that you are no longer in pain. I miss you so much already. While I may never see your smile or look in your eyes, and while I may never hear your words or listen to your laughter, I know this is to be true. Love lives forever. I miss you already, bro. Thank you for your wisdom, patience, and putting up with me.
Mitchell Seifert, Steve's lifelong friend, will share some words.
Ugly. That's what Steve and his family fondly referred to me as. Schlep. It's another name that Steve liked to call me. You know, Bad Luck Schleprock from the Flintstones? Steve loved to revel in my misery. He loved to tell a story on how I struck out to end the championship game. With friends like him, who needs enemies? But what Steve didn't understand is how lucky I really am. How lucky to have had a friend like Steve for over 50 years. We grew up on Hinsdale together. We went to elementary school, flipped cards, played King of the Hill, played stickball. For as long as I can remember, Steve and I have talked practically every day. Even if it was just a quick call to say, how was your day? That time will sorely be missed and impossible to replace. 90% of our conversations were about cards and sports. We've played all types of card games over the past 35 years, hearts, spades, euchre, poker, and oh-hell. Several months ago, when Johnny was in town, we were able to sit on this patio and play our final game of hearts. We've also been partners in fantasy leagues for about that same period of time. The other 10% of our talks were about all things that life threw at us. Whether it be bitching to each other about our wives, at least Steve did all the bitching. We even had a game of tag that we played. He would tag me when he wanted Debbie to move into my house. At least I never tagged him. Or those tough talks about work, family, or health. We talked a lot about Andrew and Jenna, as Steve's religious beliefs were a major part of his life. At least that's what he wanted you to believe. He hated when I would call him out on his hypocrisy. Like when he would tell me that he can't mix meat and cheese, and yet he would order chicken nuggets and a fish fillet sandwich. He didn't think I knew that the fish sandwich had cheese on it. Or when I told him that we were having pulled pork. You know I don't eat pork, he said. What about the egg roll, ribs, or pork fried rice you ate? Goodbye, he would say as he quickly hung up the phone. I've known him long enough to know that he would say, I lived a good life, and I'm okay with whatever happens. I've watched Andrew and Gabrielle grow up into terrific kids. I've helped to mold and shape them into the people they are today. I'm confident that they will be successful in their future endeavors, and they will pass on the high morals and standards that I've instilled into them. He was so proud of both of you. He did admit to me how amazing Debbie has been through all this. He should have recognized this long ago, as Debbie has always cooked, cleaned, did his laundry, and picked up after him, even when he was healthy, while he sat his lazy ass on a chair, playing poker or watching sports. And when he wasn't playing poker or watching sports, he took a guy's trip to Vegas. He took a business trip to Vegas. He took a getaway trip to Vegas. He played in the WSOP in Vegas. And what did Debbie get for her vacation? You guessed it, a trip to Vegas. Deep down, Steve knew how good he really had it. Debbie is an amazing wife, mother, daughter, and daughter-in-law, as she and Phyllis were best of friends. I didn't get the chance to tell him that I was advocating for him to get into the Beechwood Hall of Fame. He would have really liked that, as softball was always a huge part of his life. He deserved it. Not that anyone knew or even cared, but I didn't play a year because of how Steve was treated his final season as coach. I need to preface this last part by telling you that I always close out my speeches the same way, except a little adjustment on words. The same way I closed out my speech at Steve and Debbie's wedding. Steve, this funeral's for you. Most of your dreams, I hope they came true. I wish you a future that's not so sad, since here you've been dealt a hand that's bad. Card guys get it? Finally, I give to you my love and wish you mazel tov.
Rabbi Zach Truboff asked me to share some remarks that he emailed me. One of the greatest honors of being a synagogue rabbi is the relationship one gets to make with entire families. As a rabbi, you see them week in and week out on Shabbat. You see them on holidays. You see them when they come to Minyan for yard sites. You celebrate their simchas with them and mourn their losses with them. For every member of the Hartstein family, young and old, Cedar Sinai Synagogue was and remains their home. When I think of Steve, I inevitably think of him sitting next to his father, Bill, in shul. I think of his brother, John, and his uncle, Ave. Sitting beside them on many occasions, they would join us. I think of bar and bat mitzvahs they celebrated at the shul, and the many kiddushes sponsored in honor of various milestones. Steve was smart and sharp. I remember once he asked me about a small difference that appears in the liturgy for Nusach Sfarad, which our shul uses, and Nusach Ashkenaz. It's not the kind of thing most people would have caught, but Steve's mind was always active, always thinking about things. He noticed details that others missed. He made a point of reflecting upon them. I think it was this very quality which gave him a sense of humor, and Steve had a sense of humor. He liked making people laugh, and he had a wonderful smile. If I do say it, he had Phyllis's smile. It was that humor combined with his intelligence that made Stephen fun to be with and drew people to him. Steve loved his family, and they loved him. He was close with everyone, each in their own way. He worked side by side with his dad, and I know both Steve and Bill treasured their time together. Given that the two are different personalities, and the accounting work requires so much close collaboration, one could imagine that it wasn't always easy. But Steve found a way to make it work. Working with his dad meant too much to him. Steve was close with his brother John, but like all brothers, that doesn't mean they didn't have their moments. In thinking of the two of them, I can't help but think about this week's Parsha, where we are presented with another pair of brothers, Moshe and Aaron. Moshe and Aaron are so different from each other, each with their own unique strengths and weaknesses. One might think that this would lead to conflict, but in fact, the Torah shows us how both need each other. Moshe needs Aaron to speak on his behalf, and Aaron needs Moshe to lead the Jewish people out of Egypt. John and Steve are also quite different, but like Moshe and Aaron, they complemented each other. Each was able to offer the other something they could get from no one else. Because of this, each spurred the other's growth. Steve's love for Debbie, Andrew, and Gabby was always clear. He was so proud of all of Andrew and Gabby's accomplishments. He loved watching Andrew and Gabby go to Ohio State. Steve's relationship with Debbie goes back decades to when they were in college together. He was so proud to build a family with her. As Bill and Phyllis became older, Steve and Debbie's home became the center of gravity for the extended family, and they handled it with grace. My favorite memory of Steve, the one I get choked up about when I reflect on, was on the holidays, when Steve, Bill, and John would stand together on the bima together during Birkat Kohanim. They did this hag after hag, year after year. Each took the responsibility of being a Kohen quite seriously. Though it's an honor, it is also work. Just ask Moshe and Aaron. That's why communities need Kohanim, like Steve, people who can work hard, as Steve certainly could, but do so with a laugh and a smile. Steve blessed our congregation every hag, and we are grateful for that. But we also know the real blessing was the one he gave us through his presence in our lives. It is fitting, these are my words now, It is fitting, if far too soon, that as we are standing here today, mourning the loss and recalling the life of Steve Hartstein, we have just read Parshat Shemot, which marks a shift in the Torah's focus from a family to the Jewish people. Steve, a beloved son, brother, husband, and father, was deeply committed both to his family, the Jewish people, and service to others. Steve was born in 1965, the oldest of two siblings. He was a good student in high school. And John, you told me that teachers were often excited when they heard that you were his younger brother, though you had to confess that excitement didn't always last. After high school, Steve attended The Ohio State University, an institution to which he remained profoundly committed throughout his life. That is where he met his wife, Debbie, at a Hillel event, and he loved that that was where Andrew and Gabby attended college as well. Throughout his life, Steve loved sports. He was an avid Buckeyes fan and always wore his number 2 jersey for good luck during games. Steve, however, was not just a spectator. He loved to play softball during the summers. He was competitive, but also loved the camaraderie that came with being on a team. Nothing made him happier during those games than when Debbie and his children would attend to cheer him on. Steve also loved to coach his children's basketball and baseball teams. Steve was an accomplished accountant and attorney, and he used his incredible gift for numbers outside of his professional life as well. He served as the treasurer and acting president at the Gross Schechter Day School and was an adjunct professor at Case Western. Steve also used his passion to build connections with others. He had a devoted circle of friends with whom he played a regular game of poker, and as you heard, even made several successful appearances at the Poker World Series in Las Vegas. Steve's life was filled with long-term friendships and a deep love for his family. All of us at Oheb Tzedek Cedar Sinai can remember Bill, Steve, and Andrew opening up the Ark before Ne'ilah services. 3 generations standing together. Steve, like his father Bill, was a devoted member of our shul. In recent years, Steve also took over the role of leading Family Sidarim. Since he was first diagnosed with cancer 21 years ago, Steve fought a heroic battle against the illnesses he faced. Throughout that time, he overcame setbacks and pain. John, he was, as you said, an engine, always pushing and encouraging his children. And you all were also his engine, helping to sustain him. This past Shabbat, at the beginning of Parshat Shemot, we read the names of Joseph and his brothers, who descended with him to Egypt. The story that the Torah tells us in Parshat Shemot unfolds many years after their deaths. They are mentioned here because their unique spirit lives on within all of their descendants. Steve's spirit, his love for family, his commitment to the Jewish people, will live on within all of us whom he touched, and most certainly, and most especially, within his children. May his life be an inspiration for us all, and may his memory be a blessing. Please rise for the memorial prayer, which will be read by Josh Botnick.
Just before I begin, take just 1 minute from my side. I always refer to the Hartsteins as cousins, and it happens to be that we're not even officially cousins. And I always talk about cousin Steve, we call her cousin John, and because I just want to share that extrapolates that even though we are technically cousins of cousins and not blood related, it's just the warmth of the whole Hartstein family that, especially when myself and my family moved back to Cleveland, the way they embraced us and brought us in as part of their family, even though we're not exactly blood related. And I've enjoyed getting to be part of the extended Hartstein family. So I'm also here, again, not as officially mishpacha, but I feel that I'm part of mishpacha. And so my condolences to the Hartsteins on behalf of Hartsteins and extended Hartsteins that can't make it, and my condolences to all the Hartsteins. And I was, as I came in, it's so definitely surreal to be amongst Kohanim standing here today with a mace, but I know that we have good memories that we'll continue to take together into the future on Mashiach. El Mole Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamaseh Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei Hashchina Bamalot Kedoshim V'Torim Kezohar Harakim Azrim Et Nishmat Hareb Shmuel Yechezkel Bim Chaim Zev HaKohen Shalach Leolamo Bavur Shanachnu Mapalim Bavur Haskarat Nishmato Began Eden Te Menuchato Lachem Bala Rachamim Yastirenu Seter Kanafav Leolamim V'yitzvor V'yitzvor Achayim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach B'Shalom HaMishkovo V'nomar Amen.
This concludes the service in the chapel. Can the pallbearers please come forward?
Kindly step to your cars, please. Those of you driving with us to the cemetery, I remind you, you must manually turn on your headlights. They will not come on automatically because it's daytime. You can exit to the front or rear of the chapel as you